Once a man lives alone long enough, something strange happens. He doesn't hate women. He doesn't stop desiring them. He just stops needing them. And that single shift changes everything. He still notices beauty. He still feels attraction, but the urgency is gone. The hunger is quiet. The chasing disappears. Not because he became cold, but because he finally stopped running from himself. Most men think attraction fades with solitude. In reality, solitude removes illusion. It strips away the need to be seen, validated, completed. And when that need disappears, the way a man sees women transforms calmly, clearly, without fantasy. In this video, we're going to break down what actually happens to a man after living alone long enough. Why desire loses urgency. Why women stop being symbols. And why this quiet shift is what makes a man grounded, selective, and unintentionally magnetic. Stay with me. Because if you've lived alone for a while and felt this change without knowing how to explain it, this video will put words to something you already feel. There is a moment that happens quietly. No announcement. No dramatic realization. No decision. One day, you notice something different. You see a woman you would have chased before, and your body doesn't lean. Your mind doesn't rush ahead. There's no internal scramble to act, impress, or secure anything. The attraction is still there, but the urgency is gone. And that absence of urgency is the first sign that something fundamental has shifted inside you. Most men think desire fading means something is wrong. They assume calm equals indifference. They mistake stillness for loss. But this isn't loss. This is clarity. Before solitude, attraction feels like motion. It pulls you forward. It creates a sense that something must happen now, or you'll miss out. You see beauty, and immediately your attention leaves you. Your mind starts calculating. Your body tightens. Your future fills with imagined outcomes. This is not attraction. This is compulsion. It's desire driven by tension, not appreciation, by need, not choice. And most men never question it because it feels normal. But when you live alone long enough, that mechanism begins to weaken. Not because you suppress desire, not because you decide to become detached, but because the engine underneath desire changes. Solitude removes distraction. When there is no one around to perform for, impress, or mirror you, something uncomfortable surfaces at first. Silence. And in that silence, you encounter yourself without interruption. At the beginning, this is difficult. The mind searches for stimulation. The body looks for relief. But over time, something remarkable happens. You stop needing to escape the moment. And once you stop escaping, desire no longer has to carry you away from yourself. This is why urgency fades. Urgency exists to move you away from inner tension. When the tension dissolves, urgency has no job, so attraction slows down. Not because it's weaker, but because it's no longer trying to solve anything. Before, attraction was loaded with expectation. You wanted the woman to make you feel something, desired, sane, validated, complete. Now, attraction stands on its own. You notice beauty the way you notice a sunset. You don't rush toward it. You don't need to capture it. You don't build a future around it. You simply see it. And this is deeply unsettling for men who haven't experienced it, because they've been taught that desire must always move forward. That attraction must always lead somewhere. That calm means something is missing. But what's actually missing is pressure. And pressure is not love. It's not desire. It's not masculinity. It's fear. Fear of emptiness. Fear of silence. Fear of being alone with yourself. When solitude dissolves that fear, desire stops shouting. It speaks quietly. And quiet desire is far more honest than urgent desire ever was. You begin to notice another change. Your standards rise without effort, not because you become picky, but because you are no longer trying to fill space. When you don't need connection to regulate yourself, you stop accepting connection that costs you your center. You're no longer impressed by attention alone, or flirtation, or surface chemistry. You're drawn to resonance, to presence, to ease. And because you're no longer chasing, you begin to see women more clearly, not as solutions, not as symbols, not as validation machines, but as people. This is where many men get confused. They think living alone long enough makes them colder. In reality, it makes them less reactive. You still feel attraction, but you don't lose yourself inside it. You don't abandon your ground. You don't bend your schedule. You don't rewrite your personality. You don't lean forward emotionally before anything real has been established. You remain where you are. And from that grounded place, attraction becomes something you can choose, not something that happens to you. This is the real shift. Before solitude, desire controlled you. After solitude, you contain it. And containment is power, not domination, not suppression, but regulation. You can feel without being driven. You can want without chasing. You can appreciate without attaching. And paradoxically, this is when attraction becomes more magnetic. Because women don't feel pressure from you. They don't feel pulled into your need. They don't feel responsible for your emotional state. They feel space. And space invites curiosity. But that comes later. For now, what matters is this. If you've lived alone long enough and noticed that attraction no longer grabs you by the throat, that you can see beauty without losing your footing, that you can desire without urgency, nothing is wrong with you. Something has matured. You haven't lost attraction. You've lost the illusion that attraction must always take you somewhere. And once that illusion is gone, a man finally becomes free to see what is actually in front of him. Not what he hopes will complete him, but what is real. There is an uncomfortable truth most men never confront. Much of what you once called attraction was not attraction at all. It was escape. Escape from silence. Escape from stillness. Escape from the uneasy feeling of being alone with yourself. Before solitude, desire didn't simply arise. It interrupted you. You could be fine one moment walking, thinking, existing, and then suddenly everything shifted. An attractive woman appeared, and your attention left you. Not gently, abruptly. Your body leaned. Your mind rushed forward. A future began forming in seconds. And in that future, something important happened. You felt better, more alive, more significant, more you. That's the part most men never question. They assume desire is pulling them toward the woman. But what if it was pulling you away from yourself? This is what solitude reveals. When you live alone long enough, distractions fall away. There's no one to impress, no one to perform for, no one watching. And without that audience, something uncomfortable surfaces. A subtle tension, a quiet restlessness, a feeling that something is missing. Most men spend their entire lives running from that feeling. They fill it with noise, with work, with entertainment, with sex, with women. Attraction becomes a tool, not to connect, but to avoid. This is why desire once felt urgent. Urgency is what you feel when you're trying to get away from something. And what you were trying to escape was not loneliness. It was self-encounter. Solitude removes all exits. There's nowhere to go. No future fantasy to lean into. No person to complete the moment for you. And at first, this feels unbearable. But if you stay, if you don't run, something strange happens. The tension begins to dissolve. Not because you fixed it, but because you stopped resisting it. And when that happens, you realize something that changes how you see attraction forever. The emptiness you were trying to escape was never real. It was a misinterpretation, a habit of the ego. The ego convinces you that you are incomplete, that something essential is missing, that without validation, without attention, without being desired, you are somehow less. And attraction becomes the ego's favorite disguise. It dresses up need as romance. It frames escape as passion. It turns fantasy into destiny. But solitude strips the disguise away. When you're alone long enough, you see the mechanism clearly. You notice how attraction used to make you absent, how you weren't really there when desire took over, how your body leaned forward, away from the present moment, toward an imagined completion. And you see the cost. You were never fully with the woman either. You were with the idea of how she made you feel. This is why so many men feel empty even inside relationships. They chased attraction, thinking it would resolve something. But all it did was shift the tension to a new place. Instead of fearing being alone, they feared losing her. Instead of feeling incomplete by themselves, they felt incomplete without her. The escape just changed form. Solitude breaks this cycle, because when you stop escaping, desire loses its compulsive edge. It no longer has to save you. It no longer has to carry meaning. It can simply exist. This is the hidden truth. Desire driven by escape feels intense, urgent, overwhelming. Desire freed from escape feels calm, selective, honest. Before, attraction happened to you. Now, it arises from you. That difference changes everything. You begin to notice when attraction is pulling you out of presence and when it's simply appreciation. You feel the difference between wanting to possess and wanting to experience, between leaning forward and standing still. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. You stop confusing intensity with depth. You stop mistaking fantasy for connection. You realize that what you once chased wasn't women, it was relief. Relief from the pressure of being yourself. And the moment you stop running from that pressure, you no longer need desire to rescue you. It can return to its natural state, not as a demand, not as a compulsion, but as a response to resonance, to presence, to something real in front of you. This is why solitude doesn't kill attraction. It purifies it. It removes the ego's agenda from desire, and what remains is quieter, slower, but far more truthful. You don't look at women the same way anymore, not because you care less, but because you're no longer using them to escape yourself. And that is the moment a man finally becomes capable of real connection. This is where many men get lost. They live alone long enough to feel a shift, but instead of becoming grounded, they become closed. Instead of clarity, they develop distance. Instead of presence, they develop numbness, and they call it strength. This is the fork in the road. Solitude and loneliness look similar on the surface. Both involve being alone. Both involve fewer attachments. Both involve silence. But internally, they are opposites. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the resistance to oneself. It's what happens when a man is alone but still believes he should be somewhere else, with someone else, being something else. Loneliness feels restless. The mind looks for distraction. The body feels tense. Silence feels heavy. You scroll not because you're curious, but because you're avoiding stillness. You stay busy not because you're purposeful, but because you're uncomfortable. Loneliness is the ego panicking. It has no mirror, no audience, no validation loop, and so it tightens. It tells you stories. Something is wrong with me. I shouldn't be alone this long. If no one wants me, I must be lacking. Loneliness makes solitude feel like punishment. Solitude, on the other hand, is not something you endure. It's something you enter. Solitude begins the moment you stop resisting your own company, when you no longer need noise to feel okay, when you no longer need distraction to feel real. In solitude, silence doesn't feel empty. It feels spacious. The body relaxes. Breathing slows. Thoughts lose their urgency. Nothing is demanding your attention, and for the first time in a long time, you're not running. This difference is subtle, but everything depends on it. A lonely man pulls away from the world because he feels unchosen. A solitary man steps back because he feels complete. From the outside, both may look quiet. Inside, one is contracting. The other is expanding. Here is the danger most men don't recognize. Loneliness can masquerade as independence. A man might say, "I don't need anyone. I'm better off alone." Relationships are a waste of time. But underneath those statements is often bitterness, a subtle armor, a decision to withdraw before being disappointed again. This is not solitude. This is shutdown. Shutdown happens when pain is avoided rather than integrated. The man is not present. He's protected. And protection, when mistaken for strength, becomes isolation. True solitude does not harden you. It softens you inwardly while strengthening your center. You become less reactive, not less human, less needy, not less warm. You still feel desire. You still feel connection. But you don't cling. This is the test. Ask yourself this, when you're alone now. Do you feel calm or restless, clear or numb, open or guarded? Solitude brings clarity. Loneliness brings noise. Another way to see the difference is how you relate to time. In loneliness, time drags. You're waiting for something to happen, for someone to appear, for life to start again. In solitude, time settles. There is no rush. You're not waiting to be saved from the moment. You're living inside it. This distinction matters deeply when it comes to how you see women. A lonely man looks at women as exits, ways out of discomfort, ways out of self-contact. Even if he pretends not to care, there's still a pull, a hope, a quiet resentment when it doesn't happen. A solitary man doesn't look for exits. He doesn't need rescue. He looks for resonance. And resonance cannot be forced. This is why solitude makes a man selective. Not picky, not cold, selective. He doesn't pursue connection to avoid feeling alone. He allows connection to happen when it adds something real. Here is the critical insight. If living alone has made you cynical, emotionally flat, disinterested in people entirely, you didn't enter solitude. You retreated into shutdown. But if living alone has made you calm, clear, less reactive, more present, then you've crossed into solitude. And this is where transformation begins. Solitude reconnects you with yourself. Loneliness disconnects you from others and yourself. One builds ground. The other builds walls. The reason this distinction matters is simple. Only a man in solitude can meet another person without losing himself. A man in loneliness either clings or avoids. Both come from fear. Solitude comes from acceptance. Acceptance of silence. Acceptance of self. Acceptance of not needing to be elsewhere. And once that acceptance is established, everything else becomes possible. Attraction without urgency, connection without dependency, presence without performance. This is the fork in the road. Many men stand here without realizing it. They feel quieter than before but don't know why. This chapter is the mirror. If you recognize yourself in solitude, you're on the right path. If you recognize yourself in loneliness, this is not a failure. It's an invitation. An invitation to stop armoring and start being present. Because what comes next depends entirely on which path you take. Before solitude, women were never just women. They were symbols. Symbols of success. Symbols of validation. Symbols of completion. When a man looked at a woman, he wasn't really seeing her. He was seeing what she represented, what she could give him, how she could make him feel, who he would become by having her. And because of that, attraction was never neutral. It was loaded. loaded with hope, loaded with fantasy, loaded with expectation. This is why desire felt heavy. This is why it came with urgency. Because the woman was not just a person, she was a solution. Solitude removes this distortion. When a man has spent enough time alone to no longer need escape, something subtle but profound happens. Women stop being symbols. They stop being answers to unasked questions. They stop carrying the weight of his unfinished self. And for the first time, he begins to see them, not as projections of his longing, but as people standing in front of him. This is a radical shift, because projection is invisible while it's happening. You don't know you're projecting. You think you're desiring. But desire driven by projection doesn't see, it consumes. Solitude clears the lens. When the ego no longer needs completion, it stops assigning roles to people. And without those roles, attraction becomes lighter. You notice beauty, but you don't grab it. You feel interest, but you don't rush to turn it into a story. You enjoy presence without needing ownership. This is what appreciation looks like. Think about a sunset. You don't need to possess it. You don't need it to last forever. You don't feel anxious that it will disappear. You simply stand there and let it be what it is. That's how attraction feels after solitude. Not because you care less, but because you're no longer afraid of emptiness. Before, emptiness followed you everywhere, and women became ways to escape it. Now, emptiness has dissolved. So attraction doesn't need to rescue you. It can just exist. This changes the way you behave around women in ways you may not even notice at first. You stop performing. You stop exaggerating yourself. You stop leaning forward emotionally. You don't rush to impress. You don't shapeshift to be desired. Because there is nothing at stake. And when nothing is at stake, presence becomes effortless. You listen more. Not to respond, but to understand. You notice her tone, her rhythm, her pauses. Not because you're analyzing, but because you're available. This availability is rare. Most men are too busy managing their internal tension to actually meet the person in front of them. They're thinking, is she into me? What should I say next? Am I doing this right? Those questions disappear when attraction is no longer tied to self-worth. And when they disappear, something remarkable happens. The interaction becomes real. Not a performance. Not a strategy. A meeting. This is why solitude makes attraction more honest. You're no longer trying to extract something from the interaction. You're no longer trying to secure an outcome. You're not trying to turn the moment into a future. You're just there. And that just there quality is deeply felt. Women sense when they're being used as symbols. They feel the pressure of being someone's fantasy, solution, or escape. Even when the man is polite, charming, or romantic, pressure doesn't need words. It lives in urgency, in need, in expectation. When that pressure is gone, women feel relief. They feel room to be themselves. They don't feel watched. They feel met. And being met is rare. This doesn't mean every interaction turns into attraction. It means every interaction becomes lighter, cleaner, more human. Some women resonate, some don't. And that's okay, because resonance cannot be forced. Before solitude, rejection felt like loss. Now, it feels like information, not about your worth, but about alignment. You stop taking disinterest personally, because you're no longer using attraction to measure yourself. This is one of the quiet gifts of solitude. You become less reactive, not indifferent, but grounded. You can admire beauty without needing to possess it. You can enjoy chemistry without turning it into attachment. You can walk away without feeling diminished. This is not coldness. It's respect. Respect for yourself. Respect for her. Respect for reality. And here's the paradox most men never expect. When women stop being symbols, attraction becomes more real. Because real connection only happens when two people are present, not when one is projecting and the other is carrying. This is the foundation of mature attraction. Not intensity, not fantasy, but clarity. And clarity allows something deeper to emerge. A connection that isn't rushed. A desire that isn't desperate. A closeness that doesn't require anyone to disappear. This is what solitude teaches without instruction. You don't learn it from books. You don't think your way into it. You live it. And once you've lived it, you can't go back to seeing women as symbols. You've seen through that illusion. And what remains is something far more valuable. Presence. There is a quiet danger that appears after long periods of being alone. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel dramatic. And many men mistake it for strength. The danger is not solitude. The danger is shutdown. Shutdown happens when a man confuses calm with numbness, when he mistakes emotional distance for maturity, when he turns inward not to be present, but to be protected. And the difference between solitude and shutdown is subtle. Both are quiet. Both are self-contained. Both avoid chaos. But only one is alive. Solitude opens you inwardly. Shutdown closes you. A man in true solitude feels less reactive, but more sensitive, more grounded, but also more available, less needy, but still capable of warmth. A man in shutdown feels detached, flat, untouched. He doesn't feel urgency, but he also doesn't feel curiosity. He doesn't chase, but he also doesn't lean in. And often, he tells himself a story to justify it. I don't need anyone. Relationships are distractions. I'm above all that now. These statements sound composed on the surface, but underneath, they often hide disappointment, a wound that was never integrated, a hope that quietly died. Shutdown is what happens when pain is avoided instead of metabolized. Instead of letting solitude soften him, the man hardens. He builds an identity around being untouchable, and that identity becomes a cage. The reason this is dangerous is simple. A man in shutdown doesn't actually feel free. He feels safe, but at the cost of connection. And safety without aliveness is not strength, it's survival. True solitude doesn't remove desire. It refines it. Shutdown suppresses desire entirely. It replaces curiosity with indifference, openness with dismissal, presence with distance. You can tell the difference by how a man responds to connection. A solitary man doesn't chase, but he can engage. He can enjoy a conversation. He can feel attraction. He can let someone close without losing himself. A shutdown man avoids intimacy reflexively. He keeps conversations shallow. He withdraws when things deepen. He frames detachment as clarity. But clarity doesn't numb you. It simplifies you. Here's a simple test. When a woman shows interest, do you feel calm curiosity or emotional flatness? Calm curiosity is solitude. Flatness is shutdown. Another test is how you experience silence. In solitude, silence feels full. In shutdown, silence feels empty but tolerable. You're not disturbed, but you're not nourished either. You're enduring. Many men enter shutdown unintentionally. They lived through disappointment, rejection, loss. Solitude helped them survive. But instead of reopening later, they stayed armored. And armor, worn too long, becomes identity. This is where men begin to say things like, "I don't feel anything anymore. I don't care. Nothing moves me." They think this is peace. It's not. Peace is responsive. Peace can feel joy. Peace can feel attraction. Peace can feel sadness without being ruled by it. Shutdown feels nothing. And nothingness is not wisdom. The Stoics never taught numbness. They taught equanimity, the ability to feel without being controlled. If solitude has made you indifferent rather than discerning, something went wrong. But here's the important part. Shutdown is not a failure. It's a stage, often a temporary one, a pause while the nervous system recalibrates. The problem only arises when a man mistakes it for the destination. The way out of shutdown is not forcing emotion. It's allowing contact again slowly. Contact with life, with people, with sensation, without expectation, without urgency, without identity attached to outcome. A grounded